So we have completed the discussion about the Sikh state. Okay. Now some basic facts about the Sikh gurus you must know. तो वो आप खुद से भी पढ़ लोगे that who started Langar, right? And who laid the foundation of Amritsar temple, who completed it. Okay. So there are a few facts which you should know. Now, okay, in the same continuance, we need to discuss another topic, and that is annexation of Sindh by British. Again, this is a very important topic. Okay. It's important for prelims. Okay. It may be important for GS mains also. This topic is equally important for the optional students also. But optional students को थोड़े कुछ statements वगैरह को elaborate करना होता है. But this is important for prelims. You can get prelims question also from this topic. Now Sindh. We are talking about Sindh here. Sindh topic is related with Sikh, and it's also related with the Afghan war. Okay, so there are three important correlations here. Again, I am marking here some important years, and with the help of these years, we can easily relate some important things. For example, 1838, which treaty was signed between EIC and Ranjit Singh and Shah Suja? Tripartite Treaty, right?
Right.
We all know this. So this treaty was signed here, Tripartite Treaty. And in this treaty, there was the context of Punjab state under Ranjit Singh, plus East India Company was involved, and as well as Afghan issue was also involved here. Afghan issue was also involved here. Ranjit Singh is also involved here. The very next day, Ranjit Singh died, 1839. Now, another important event here is 1839 to 1842. Why this year is important? So this year is important due to First Anglo-Afghan War. So here what was first? First Anglo-Afghan wars were fought. All these years are important. So correlate these years and try to remember these years. ठीक है? 1839 to 1842. First Anglo-Afghan war was First Anglo-Afghan war was fought. And now I am correlating the third year. And third year is 1843. What happened in 1843? So annexation of Sindh into the British Empire. It means here British did what? They forcefully annexed, read this. EIC forcefully annexed Sindh, annexed Sindh. And then Sindh became a part of British Empire. Sindh became a part of British Empire. Okay. British forcefully annexed Sindh, and Sindh became part of British Empire. Right? Now, another important fact that you must know, it can be important for prelims exam, that in 1847, this Sindh became a part of Bombay Presidency. ठीक है? तो statement अगर कभी prelims में आए तो be alert that 1843 it became a part of the British Empire, and 1847, okay, Sindh became a part of Bombay province. Sindh became a part of Bombay province. This can be a statement based question also, that Sindh was a part of which province. So the answer is Bombay province. Clear? But this year is important. Annexation of Sindh, okay, took place in the year 1843. Okay, so mark this year important year. When annexation of Sindh took place, this is an important year for prelims. Now let's look at this map. This is the location of the Sindh here. This area is Sindh. ये एरिया क्या है? यही एरिया है आपका सिंध. This area is Sindh. Okay. And we all know that in northern part of the territories, okay, who was extending his control इस समय? Ranjit Singh. This was a Punjab state or Punjab territory. Punjab state or Punjab territory was a powerful buffer for the protection of EIC's empire in India. And what we see is that, again, here, what we see is the condition of, or you can say here, Afghanistan. Afghanistan. Afghanistan will also play the role of buffer. This is buffer 1, buffer 2, buffer 3. Afghanistan will also play the role of buffer. We all know. Now, why this Sindh area is important for the British? Why Sindh is important? So, Sindh is important first due to its strategic position, right? Due to its strategic position, okay? Its strategic position. This is important, okay? So, Sindh is important for British due to its strategic position. अभी सिंध ब्रिटिश का हिस्सा नहीं था. दिस इज एनेक्सेशन ऑफ स्टेट्स. कैसे एनेक्स किया? दूसरा इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है? दैट ब्रिटिश वांटेड, एआईसी वांटेड टू एक्सटेंड its influence and control in Afghanistan. And for that reason, also Sindh was important. That if you want to maintain or if you want to extend, EIC wanted to extend its power and influence in Afghanistan region, right? And for that reason also, you need what? Sindh. Sindh इसलिए भी आपको चाहिए. Why Punjab territories were annexed to British Empire? We all know. Tripartite struggle में क्या था? They needed a passage. उनको रास्ता चाहिए था. And when the buffer will become weaker, okay, they will annex Punjab. EIC will annex Punjab because again, EIC want to exercise its dominance and control in Afghanistan region. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? तो annexation of Punjab was also done for one reason, strategic importance, and the intention of EIC to extend its power and influence in the Afghanistan region. This was done for the same purpose. Plus सिंध रीजन नाम ही है इसका, इंडस रिवर, दिस एरिया, ठीक है. इसी तो ऑब्वियसली ड्यू टू दिस इंडस रिवर और सिंधु रिवर, ओके, तब उसके हिस्से में था, इट केम अंडर दैट टेरिटरी. तो इसका भी एक इकोनॉमिक इंपॉर्टेंस भी था, ओके. सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द रीजंस. कॉमर्शियल गेन्स फ्रॉम दिस टेरिटरी, this is also one reason. So Sindh is important for the British. Now what Sindh British will do? British बहुत होशियार है. वो क्या करते हैं, जैसे स्कूल कॉलेज में आप में से कोई स्टूडेंट लीडर विडर रहा है क्या? इलेक्शन वगैरह लड़े हो? नहीं. तो जिन लोगों ने इलेक्शन लड़ा होगा उसको ये टेक्निक पता होगी. जब नए बच्चे आते हैं ना कॉलेज में और उनको अपना फैन बनाना होता है तो उसकी एक टेक्निक होती है. वो क्या होती है? अपने किसी दोस्त से बोलो कि जाके उसको 2 थप्पड़ लगाओ, ठीक है. वो जाके 2 थप्पड़ लगाएगा. इट मीन्स वन पर्सन विल गो and will bully that newcomer and you will go and protect him. आप उसे बचाओगे. कहोगे अरे हिम्मत कैसे हुई, तुमने इसको थप्पड़ मार दिया, ठीक है. और फिर क्या होगा? दैट पर्सन विल बिकम फैन. वो पूरे पूरे 3 साल कॉलेज में आपके साथ साथ रहेगा, ठीक है. ये होता है, ठीक है. मेनी
सर
पीपल.
यहाँ पे नहीं होता ऐसा,
क्या?
महाराष्ट्र मुंबई में नहीं होता है ऐसा स्टूडेंट सिलेक्शन में?
अभी आप वैसे बच्चों से मिले नहीं होंगे. हर जगह
ओके।
होता है. ठीक है. तो ये तरीका होता है, ठीक है, कि अपने किसी आदमी को भेजा, ठीक है, थोड़ा डराया धमकाया और फिर उसको प्रोटेक्ट कर लिया और इस तरह से फ्रेंडशिप बन गई, ठीक है. तो ये तरीके होते हैं, राइट. बट ये अच्छा तरीका नहीं है, यू शुड नॉट डू दिस, ठीक है. तो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी वॉज फॉलोइंग द सेम ट्रिक. हु इज पावरफुल हियर? रंजीत सिंह. रंजीत सिंह वॉज अलाइव एट दैट टाइम. रंजीत सिंह बहुत पावरफुल थे. नाउ EIC will encourage Ranjit Singh to annex the territories of Sindh. EIC रंजीत सिंह को इनकरेज करेगी कि जाओ और सिंध की टेरिटरीज को क्या करो? कैप्चर करो. ओके. नाउ रंजीत सिंह विल गो एंड कैप्चर सम ऑफ द टेरिटरीज ऑफ सिंध. बहुत मजेदार स्टोरी है. रंजीत सिंह जाके कुछ टेरिटरीज को कैप्चर कर लेंगे. नाउ EIC एंड द रूलर्स ऑफ सिंध वेर नोन एज अमीर्स. यहाँ पे रूलर्स को क्या कहते हैं? अमीर्स कहते हैं. बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग कहानी है. नाउ EIC विल गो, the representatives of EIC will go and meet with Amirs. वो अमीर से मिलेंगे and they will say that Ranjit Singh is not doing good. ये अच्छा नहीं है. We want to protect you. हम आपको क्या करना चाहते हैं? प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहते हैं. We want to protect you from okay your enemies, and for that you need to sign a treaty with East India Company, and that treaty will be the Treaty of Perpetual Friendship or Treaty of Friendship. दैट इज व्हाट? सब्सिडी अलायंस ट्रीटी. वही ट्रीटी तो थी, फ्रेंडशिप की ट्रीटी. दैट द स्टेट विल बिकम द प्रोटेक्टेड स्टेट ऑफ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी. अमीर्स ने कहा यार रंजीत सिंह से ज्यादा डर नहीं लग रहा है, क्योंकि उसने सिर्फ एक टेरिटरी पे कंट्रोल किया अभी। ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ने कहा कल किसने देगा, ठीक है, हम आपको प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे, मतलब जबरदस्ती सब्सिडी अलायंस साइन किया सिंध के साथ, राइट। सो दिस इज द कॉन्टेक्स्ट, पूरा कॉन्टेक्स्ट लिखना नहीं है, बट आपने समझना है कि ईआईसी डिड व्हाट, ईआईसी फोर्सफुली imposed subsidiary alliance treaty on सिंध। सिंध पे क्या किया, फोर्सफुली इम्पोज कर दिया सब्सिडियरी अलायंस ट्रीटी। दे फोर्सफुली imposed this treaty on Sindh. Sindh was not willing to sign it, but AIC did what? It forcefully imposed this treaty. And the year was 1839। ये रणजीत सिंह के डेथ से पहले की बात है, 1839। ओके, सब्सिडी अलायंस ट्रीटी वॉज imposed on Sindh। Okay, now in 1813, now I am just discussing the name of a governor general. The name of one governor general was, देखो ये हैदराबाद, when you read the books ना, you will find a name हैदराबाद, it was the capital of Sindh। तो ये हैदराबाद ये साउथ वाला नहीं है, मेरी बात समझ गया ना, ये हैदराबाद यहाँ भी है। तो कई बार बुक्स में लिखा होता है, तो एक बार मैं एक यूट्यूब वीडियो देख रहा था, तो टीचर ने बताया कि गलत लिखा हुआ है। ठीक है, तो यहाँ हैदराबाद है, तो कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है, गलत नहीं लिखा हुआ है, राइट। तो देखो क्या होगा यहाँ, 1839 सब्सिडरी अलायंस ट्रीटी वाज साइंड विथ सिंध। सिंध के साथ क्या हो गया, सब्सिडरी अलायंस ट्रीटी साइन हो गया। नाउ लॉर्ड ऑकलैंड, ये नाम मैं पहले भी बता चुका हूं, आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस दिस नेम विथ यू। लॉर्ड ऑकलैंड वाज द गवर्नर जनरल हियर। लॉर्ड ऑकलैंड, कुछ नेम्स भी हैं जो प्रीलिम्स के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट हैं, तो मैं थोड़ा सा डिटेल में आके बता रहा हूँ कि आपको। 1836 टू 1842, ओके, लॉर्ड ऑकलैंड, he was the governor general. Now, subsidiary alliance treaty with Sindh was signed when, who was the governor general? Lord Auckland was the governor general। ध्यान रखना प्रीलिम्स के स्टेटमेंट में यहाँ पे बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस की पॉसिबिलिटीज है, बिकॉज दिस टॉपिक इज वेरी मच पॉपुलर। यूपीएससी फ्रेम्स क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम द पॉपुलर टॉपिक्स एंड दे विल पिक दोज फैक्ट्स दैट हैज नॉट बीन आस्क्ड। ठीक है, दिस इज द जनरल ट्रिक। तो always remember 1839 subsidiary alliance treaty was signed. So when subsidiary alliance treaty was signed with Sindh, who was the governor general? Lord Auckland was the governor general. Now, Lord Auckland was replaced by Lord Ellenborough. Lord Auckland was replaced by Lord Ellenborough. And Lord Ellenborough was the governor general of Sindh from 1842 to 1844 period, 1842 to 44 period. Now what is the prelims question here? The prelims question is 1843 annexation of Sindh was done in which year? So the year
43.
is 1843। तो क्वेश्चन क्या होगा, when the annexation of Sindh was done, who was the governor general? So the answer will be Lord Ellenborough. Highlight it, mark it, very very important fact. When annexation of Sindh was done, Lord Ellenborough was the governor general। very very important, this is very very important। when annexation of Sindh was done, Lord Ellenborough was the governor general। ठीक है, अब इसके बाद देखो, नाउ अनदर नेम कम्स, दैट इज चार्ल्स नेपियर। तो उस नाम से भी कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है, दैट इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट टू नो, एंड दैट आई एम गोइंग टू डिस्कस। ओके, नाउ देखो, वी ऑल नो दिस दैट व्हेन सब्सिडरी अलायंस ट्रीटी इज साइंड, जब सब्सिडरी अलायंस ट्रीटी होगा तो उसके कंडीशंस क्या क्या है। पहला, a British resident, that is a British officer, will be kept in the ruler's court। तो when Sindh will sign subsidiary alliance treaty, so this was the capital, ठीक है, ये भी capital, ये भी capital, but this was the capital Hyderabad। So in Hyderabad what will happen, British officers or resident will be kept। यहाँ ध्यान रखना, British officers, and the officer is known as resident। resident, this resident will be kept। रेजिडेंट का काम क्या होता था, हेल्पिंग इन डिप्लोमेटिक अफेयर्स, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्टिविटीज। सो रेजिडेंट विल बी केप्ट। अब यहाँ पे दो रेजिडेंट्स हैं, एक रेजिडेंट का नाम सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, दैट आई वांट टू डिस्कस विथ यू। वन वाज मेजर आउटरम एंड द सेकंड वाज चार्ल्स नेपियर। इसका मतलब देखो, प्रीलिम्स का क्वेश्चन क्या है? आई एम जस्ट डिस्कसिंग वन नेम सो दैट देयर विल बी नो एनी कंफ्यूजन। दोनों नाम नहीं बता रहा हूं। व्हेन एनेक्सेशन ऑफ सिंध वाज डन, राइट दिस, चार्ल्स नेपियर वाज द चार्ल्स नेपियर वाज द resident officer, resident officer, okay, British resident in Sindh's court. ठीक है, चार्ल्स नेपियर, दिस नेम इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। तो कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है। चार्ल्स नेपियर क्या था? ही वॉज, ओके, अ ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट ऑफिसर, राइट, बाय दिस सब्सिडियल एंड ट्रीटी। ये ब्रिटिश ऑफिसर है। नाउ ही सक्सीड्स आउटरम। आउटरम एक ऑफिसर था। ही वाज आल्सो इन द ब्रिटिश, ही वाज आल्सो ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट ऑफिसर। तो रेजिडेंट ऑफिसर का भी ट्रांसफर होता रहता था, ठीक है ना। तो आउटरम को रिप्लेस करके कौन आया? चार्ल्स नेपियर। और चार्ल्स नेपियर बड़ा बदमाश था, उसी से आकाश की मुलाकात नहीं हुई है, ठीक है, चार्ल्स नेपियर, राइट। नाउ चार्ल्स नेपियर विल कम एंड नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस द मोस्ट इंटरेस्टिंग इंफॉर्मेशन हियर, ठीक है। चार्ल्स नेपियर, चार्ल्स नेपियर, Charles Napier. So Charles Napier becomes British resident in the court of Sindh in 1842. In the court of Sindh in 1842. And what he will do, here we see a change in EIC's policy. Here we see what? A change in EIC's policy. And what is the change in EIC's policy? That is very important. So what we see is that before 1842, before 1842, and I am writing here after 1842. After 1842. Now we have to understand that what is the change in British policy. British policy में change क्या है? What is the change in British policy? तो देखो before 1842 क्या हुआ है? In 1839 Sindh has already signed what? Subsidiary
Subsidiary
Alliance
alliance.
Treaty. सिंध ने ऑलरेडी क्या किया है? सब्सिडी अलायंस ट्रीटी साइन किया। एंड सिंध वाज, okay, obeying all the orders of East India Company. Whatever East India Company was saying, Sindh rulers were following those orders. Clear? So Sindh was obeying, obeying all the orders of EIC. It means they were doing what? Cooperation with East India Company. They were doing cooperation with East India Company. ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के साथ कोऑपरेशन भी कर रहे थे। बिकॉज वाई आई एम सेइंग दिस, because when first Anglo-Afghan war was fought, what was the time period? 1839 to 1842. तो बिना अंग्रेजों ने क्या किया? They took the help of Sindh, okay, while they were fighting with Afghans, and Sindh amirs provided help and support. ठीक है? So this is also very important that when first Anglo-Afghan war was fought, so what we see is that Sindh amirs of Sindh, or the rulers of Sindh, they provided help and support to East India Company. They provided help and support to East India Company. They provided help and support to East India Company. And since Sindh was under this treaty, Subsidiary Alliance Treaty, therefore we can say that Sindh was also a protectorate state of EIC. Sindh was also a protectorate state of East India Company. Sindh was also a protectorate state of East India Company. ठीक है? अब जरा एक सिचुएशन इमर्ज करो कि कोई आदमी अपने दुश्मन से बचने के लिए आपके घर में आके शेल्टर ले, ठीक है? और आप क्या करो? उसके दुश्मन को कॉल करके बुला दो, उसका एड्रेस दे दो। तो बताओ ये कितनी बुरी बात होगी? सिंध के साथ यही होगा। Sindh is doing what? Sindh is helping and supporting East India Company. But in 1842, Charles Napier said, statement is very interesting. Charles Napier said, read this. Charles Napier क्या कहता है? Here Charles Napier is the resident, and we all know that Charles Napier के intentions पता चलते हैं एक statement से, and this statement is also asked in prelims exam, right? Okay, what was the statement? Read this. We have no right to seize Sindh. चार्ल्स नेपियर क्या कह रहा है? वी हैव नो राइट we have no right to seize सिंध. सिंध पे फुल कंट्रोल करने का, सिंध को कंप्लीटली एनेक्स करने का कोई राइट हमारा नहीं बनता है. क्यों नहीं बनता है? बिकॉज इट वॉज ऑलरेडी cooperating with the East India Company. It was already in the subsidiary alliance treaty. But Charles Napier says that, right? This, but we shall do this. But we shall do this. But we shall do this. लेकिन हम ऐसा करेंगे. सिंध पे कैप्चर करने का कोई राइट हमारा नहीं बनता. But we shall do this. President of Sindh. And his statement was, we don't have any right to annex Sindh. But we shall do so. ठीक है. Why? And he is also writing that it will be a very advantageous, write this point, it will be a very advantageous, it will be a very advantageous, it will be a very advantageous, okay, useful, advantageous, useful, and okay, humane piece of rascality. Humane piece of rascality. It will be very useful. Okay. And humane piece of rascality. Humane piece of rascality. Okay. He is writing this. It will be a useful and humane piece of rascality. It means that he is clearly accepting that it's not ethical to annex the Sindh. Sindh को annex करना ethical नहीं है, but we will do it because it is very advantageous and useful for the British Empire. This shows the intention of the British rulers. ये उनके intention को भी दिखलाता है, right? That they annexed Sindh only to fulfill their selfish motives. Clear? Because Sindh rulers were already helping and cooperating with them. And he made another statement. That statement also is important for your prelims exam. Read this. These statements are important for prelims exam. Statement number 2 is, Sindh war was the tale of Afghan storm. Sindh war was the tale of Afghan storm. ये PYQ है. It has already been asked. Sindh war was a tale of Afghan storm. Sindh war was a tale of Afghan storm. इसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट समझ पा रहे हो? अफगान वॉर कब से कब तक है? 1839 to 1842. And it is saying that Sindh war is the tale of Afghan war. Is it clear? Statement is clear? ठीक है कि अफगान वॉर से ही जुड़ा हुआ है, right? And what happened when Charles Napier becomes the resident? He will put some allegations on the Amirs of Sindh. Amirs of Sindh. He will put some allegations. Obviously, these allegations were the false allegations. And what are the allegations? जैसे अवध के साथ किया था. What they did with Awadh in 1801? Pretext. It was pretext of misgovernance. Pretext of misgovernance. So the same they did here. Charles Napier will make allegation that the Sindh Amirs are promoting disaffection against the British government in their state. And since you are in protectorate state, so you should not do this. अपने लोगों को British government के खिलाफ क्या कर रहे हो? भड़का रहे हो. You are promoting disaffection against the British government. And this is not right. Charles Napier will say that Sindh Amirs are having hostility with the East India Company. East India Company से दुश्मनी पाल रहे हैं. झूठा allegation. It's all false allegation. Okay. And he will also make allegation that Sindh Amirs are violating the terms and conditions of subsidiary alliance. वो subsidiary alliance के terms and conditions को क्या कर रहे हैं? Violate कर रहे हैं. Then he will start bullying the Amirs of Sindh. ठीक है? Bullying करने का मतलब समझ रहे हो ना? He will start bullying Amirs of Sindh, and very soon, in 1843, Sindh was annexed. Sindh became a part of British Indian Empire. Sindh became a part of British Indian Empire. This shows that how a resident played an important role in the annexation of a state. Here Charles Napier is the resident. Okay, so all prelims questions are covered here, and now you have also understood or the entire context. तो कौन कौन से facts याद रखना? One is Lord Ellenborough was the Governor General when Sindh was annexed, and Charles Napier was the resident. And when it was annexed, 1843, plus it was made a part of Bombay province, plus some relations with Anglo-Afghan war and all this. Clear? This statement that Sindh war was the tale of Afghan war. कितना आसान है, मेरी बात समझ गए ना? अब इसको एक दो बार रिवाइज कर लेना है और आप इसको याद रख सकते हो एग्जाम तक. देयर इज नो नीड टू अपडेट इट फ्रॉम द बुक्स. थोड़े और डिटेल में पढ़ना होता है वो ऑप्शनल स्टूडेंट्स को, तो हमारे लिए दिस मच इज सफिशिएंट. नाउ आई एम कमिंग टू द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक. अफगानिस्तान आई विल डिस्कस लेटर. म्यांमार और ये सारे अफगानिस्तान. फॉरेन पॉलिसी ओके ऑफ ब्रिटिश, this we will discuss, and there we will discuss this entire Afghanistan issue. Now here I am going to start a new topic, and that is we are now familiar with, अच्छा there are some other states also ना, there are some other states also, तो उनके बारे में भी जान लेते हैं. There are some other states also, so we must know some basics. ठीक है, the other states are not that much important, but still okay हमें जानना चाहिए what are these other states. Okay, for example, in other states, one famous state was okay Kerala, Travancore state. Right, this Kerala and Travancore state, Kerala. Okay, and here the state is Travancore state, Kerala Travancore state. Okay, एक उससे देखते हैं, इसको स्लाइड से देखते हैं. This Travancore state. Okay, and first we are going to discuss this part, that is Kerala or the Travancore state. ये important इसलिए भी है because when we'll discuss integration of princely states, so there Travancore state also have some issues. ठीक है ना, तो वो हम डिस्कस करेंगे. बट हियर वी आर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट दिस केरला स्टेट, Travancore state. Okay, so what is the issue here? So first we should know some facts, and what is the fact here? That we all know that okay Kerala, obviously this is a part of southern India, right? Southern India. And when we talk about Kerala, so this state was divided among ruling chiefs. For example, the state was divided among different ruling chiefs. For example, one group of ruling chiefs were Calicut. Calicut was one part or the territory, and here in this part who were ruling? Zamorins were ruling. ये नाम तो हमें पता है ना. Calicut में who were ruling? Zamorins were ruling. The context of Vasco da Gama, ठीक है? From Portugal he came to India. 1498 he reached Calicut. He was welcomed by the Zamorins. ये fact आपको पता है. In the same way, there was another state, that is Chirakkal. Chirakkal, right? There was another state, that was Cochin. Cochin. And the fourth part here, this all is Kerala, and the fourth part was Travancore. The fourth part was Travancore, and Travancore here was a rising state in the 18th century. 18th century का rising state था Travancore, rising state in 18th century, right? 18th century it was rising state. It also emerged as a Travancore, here especially we are talking about Travancore, it also emerged as a cultural state. Travancore state जो था, it also emerged as a cultural state. It was a rising state, it was a cultural state. Okay, and that's why it is popular. One ruler was Martand Varma, another ruler was Raja Ram Varma, and they were very famous rulers in Travancore state. Read this, Martand Varma and Raja Ram Varma. Raja Ram Varma were the very famous rulers of Travancore state. और ये एरिया कभी किसके कंट्रोल में आता था? चेरा रूलर्स के कंट्रोल में आता था previously, right? It was under the control of Chera rulers. Okay, so we are talking about this particular area. Look here, Zamorin आपने नाम सुना है ना? So this entire area was ruled or controlled by the Zamorins. This is what Calicut, 1498, at the time of Vasco da Gama's arrival. ठीक है, Cochin was there. ठीक है, Calicut, Cochin. So in this way we see the different states of Kerala. The another important state in 18th century, not that much important, is Jat rulers. Right, this Jat. एक जो दूसरा group है, that is the group of Jat rulers. Okay, this is Travancore state. देखो, in 18th century, this was the extension of this Travancore state. ये था. Okay, Travancore state. Okay, this is Travancore state in 18th century. Okay, Travancore. Ramavarma, Marthandavarma, they were the important rulers. Now Jat power. Jat power was also an important power. We all know that Jats were the peasantry class. They were the peasantry class. Okay, and they were mainly concentrated. Okay, near this Delhi and Agra belt, right, in the suburbs of Delhi. So they were mainly concentrated in this Delhi and Agra belt. Delhi Agra belt में इनका main concentration था, right? They were coming from the community of agriculturists. They were doing agriculture, right? And they were very powerful and organized as well, right? They are coming from agriculturalist class. This group was organized and powerful. Organized and powerful. This group was also organized and powerful, right? A Jat state was laid down in Rajasthan, basically Bharatpur. You must have heard this name, Bharatpur. Okay, so the Bharatpur, the foundation of Bharatpur or Bharatpur was laid down as a Jat state. Okay, in Rajasthan. And who laid down the foundation of this Jat state of Bharatpur? So the answer is Churaman and Badan Singh. Very important question for prelims. Write this. Churaman and Badan Singh. Okay, they laid the foundation of this Jat state in Bharatpur. Churaman and Badan Singh. Okay, now there was another popular ruler of Jat, and that was Surajmal. The third important name here is Surajmal. Write this. Surajmal was another important, okay, leader of Jat. Okay, so these are popular. Surajmal is another important leader of Jat. Okay, now Surajmal is also known as, these are simple facts, Plato of the Jat tribe. सूरजमल, देखो प्लेटो इसलिए कहा जाता है क्योंकि ये सभी रूलर्स में सबसे ज्यादा बुद्धिमान था. ठीक है, दैट्स व्हाई ही इज नोन एज प्लेटो. ही वाज नोन एज द प्लेटो ऑफ द जाट. प्लेटो ऑफ द जाट्स. ही इज आल्सो नोन एज यूलिसिस ऑफ जाट्स. प्लेटो ऑफ जाट्स और यूलिसिस ऑफ जाट्स. इसको प्लेटो ऑफ जाट भी कहते हैं, यूलिसिस ऑफ जाट्स भी कहते हैं. गॉट इट? दिस इज an important point. Now, why Surajmal context is important? So this context is important due to one event. That event is very important. We must know this. And that event is Third Battle of Panipat. Read this. Third Battle of Panipat. This is the event. It was fought in the year 1761. It was fought between Marathas and Ahmad Shah Abdali. Right. Fought between Marathas and Ahmad Shah Abdali. ये बैटल मराठा और अहमद शाह अब्दाली के बीच हुआ. Right? It was fought between Marathas and Ahmad Shah Abdali. Now, in this battle, we all know that Marathas failed to get help and support from the other local rulers. उनको support मिला नहीं. And this shows their lack of diplomatic outlook. Here, what happened is that, देखो मराठा कहाँ से आए थे लड़ने के लिए? पानीपत. Okay, so here they expected or they demanded for the help and support of Surajmal. And it is said that if Surajmal would have given support, the result of the war could change. अगर सूरजमल ने सपोर्ट किया होता तो थर्ड एंग्लो मराठा वॉर का रिजल्ट बदल सकता था और इससे हिंदुस्तान का भी रिजल्ट बदल सकता था. Got it? So they expected help and support from Surajmal. But what was the response of Surajmal? I have already told you that the local rulers were not happy with the outlook of the Marathas. So Surajmal decided to remain neutral. यानी सूरजमल अहमद शाह अब्दाली का भी साथ नहीं देगा. He will remain neutral he will give help and support to Marathas, but this help and support is okay. For example, if the soldiers are retreating or moving back, so Surajmal will provide them food, Surajmal will provide them water, but active military support he will not provide. Clear? So that's why this context is important. So this is one context. Third battle of Panipat. तो क्या जानना है हमें? Surajmal, मान लो suppose you get this statement that Surajmal helped and supported Marathas in third battle of Panipat. Correct or incorrect? Incorrect. He remained neutral. और ये information बहुत ही important है. So write this important note. This information is very important. Write this. Surajmal remained neutral in the third battle of Panipat. Surajmal remained neutral in the third battle of Panipat. Panipat remained neutral in the third battle of Panipat. Okay. He did not provide help and support to Marathas. Active military help and support to Marathas. He did not provide active military help and support to Marathas. He did not provide active military help and support to Marathas. So देखो, one state here is Travancore, one state here is रोहिलखंड. इसके बारे में भी जानना है. Few informations. रोहिलखंड, ठीक है? रोहिलखंड रीजन. दिस रोहिलखंड किसी ने पूछा भी था पहले मुझसे अबाउट दिस रोहिलखंड स्टेट. ओके, तो देखो देर आर टू एरियाज, दिस रोहिलखंड प्लस फर्रुखाबाद रीजन. दिस फर्रुखाबाद टुडे इज इन उत्तर प्रदेश. फर्रुखाबाद, ओके, फर्रुखाबाद, रोहिलखंड, ओके. These are the territories where what happened. For example, I have already told you that different foreign groups came to India, right? Many of them came and settled in India also. Okay, now there was an Afghan invader or write this Afghan invader. The name of this Afghan invader was Muhammad Khan Bangas. The name of this Afghan invader was Muhammad Khan Bangash. ठीक है? He was an invader, but he came and settled in India. और जब वो सेटल हुआ तो किस एरिया में सेटल हुआ? रोहिलखंड एंड फर्रुखाबाद. This area. He did not came alone. He came with hundreds of other Afghans. So they came and settled here. And they carved out separate state for themselves. And this state is Afghan state of Rohilkhand of Farrukhabad. And here, who were living here? So the descendants of Muhammad Khan Bangash were living in these areas. ठीक है ना? Descendants of Muhammad Khan Bangash were living in these areas. ठीक है? Got it? Again, this is also Rohilkhand. Okay, this is also Afghan groups. This is also Farrukhabad. What Afghan groups were ruling here? ठीक है? Rohillas. So if someone asks you why it is called Rohillas, so the answer is Rohillas are the groups of Afghan tribes who came and settled here, and that's why this area will be called what? Rohilkhand. ठीक है? This area will be called Rohilkhand. This area will be called Rohilkhand. Okay. Now I am entering into the another topic. These are some minor topics. और आपका काम क्या है इसके बाद? I will also discuss a debate that is India in 18th century. You will read NCERT class 12th book, Bipan Chandra book, India in 18th century chapter. ठीक है ना? You will read it. This is old NCERT. और उसको कम से कम 3 to 4 times you will read. I have already discussed all stuff in that part. Now we are coming to another topic, and that is a very important topic. That is, write this, policies followed by EIC for the expansion of British rule in India. This is the topic we are going to discuss. Policies followed by EIC. Policies followed by EIC for the expansion of British rule in India. Policies followed by EIC for the expansion of British rule in India. ठीक है ना? Policies followed by EIC for the expansion of British rule in India. कौन से policies follow किए? Yes. हाँ, अफगान ग्रुप्स देखो वहां पे ऐसा नहीं कि सिंगल ग्रुप केम, डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स केम. फॉर एग्जांपल वन ग्रुप सेटल्ड इन रोहिलखंड रीजन, अनदर ग्रुप सेटल्ड इन फर्रुखाबाद रीजन. ठीक है, डिसेंडेंट्स ऑफ मोहम्मद खान बंगस. ठीक है, एक दो और एडवेंचरस के नाम है यहाँ. ठीक है, दस दैट मच इज रिक्वायर्ड. ठीक है ना, गॉट इट. यहाँ से उतने क्वेश्चन आते नहीं, जैसे जाट स्टेट से सम फैक्ट्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट विच यू ऑल नो. ठीक है ना. Now, Travancore State, some rulers are important. Why? Because of their cultural achievements. That's why I discussed. Okay. Now, policies for the expansion of British rule in India that was followed by East India Company. So, EIC was previously a trading company, but it became an administrative body, or you can say that, okay, it became a political power in which year? So, the answer is 1757. Okay. Now, in order to establish control and dominance over India, what EIC will do? Will EIC follow a uniform policy, continuous policy? No. Okay. The policies of East India Company will keep on changing according to the changing colonial needs. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? Okay. Colonial needs and aspirations will change. The challenges before colonialism will emerge from time to time, and according to those challenges, what East India Company will do? East India Company will also keep on changing its policies again and again. Therefore, we can say that the policies which EIC followed here was a kind of non-uniform policy. ये policy कैसी थी? It was a non-uniform policy. For example, okay, you have heard the name of these policies. For example, one name is policy of ring fence. Policy of ring fence. Now we can better relate because we are familiar with the states now. Okay, policy of ring fence. You also have heard the name of policy of subsidiary alliance. Okay. Okay. Now there is another policy, that is policy of subordinate isolation. Policy of subordinate isolation. Now EIC adopted another policy that is known as policy of doctrine of lapse. Policy of doctrine of lapse. Then policy of subordinate union. Policy of subordinate union. Policy of subordinate union. This is a new policy. Policy of subordinate union. Then policy of equal federation. Policy of equal federation, etc. It means this is in chronological order, right? I will also discuss the ages here. This topic is very very important, बहुत important है. Policy of ring fence. UPSC ने सीधे क्वेश्चन पूछा है, कौन सी पॉलिसी किस फेज में थी? They have asked straightforward question. They have asked question from subsidy alliance. They have asked question from doctrine of lapse. Okay, so you'll get a lot of questions here. So these are the different policies that were followed by British, but all these policies were followed during different time intervals. During different time intervals. Different time intervals. Now, what is that time interval? We need to understand. Okay, policy of ring fence was followed at the very initial stage. It was followed at very initial stage. Okay, this was followed when Warren Hastings came to India. Warren Hastings का टाइम पीरियड क्या है? 1772 to 1785. This was followed in the very early stage when Warren Hastings came to India, right? Now we are going to discuss the same policy, starting with the same policy, policy of ring fence. Clear? Who introduced this policy? So the answer is Warren Hastings introduced this policy. Warren Hastings. And we all know the time period of Warren Hastings in India is from 1772 to 1785. कब से कब तक का है? 72 से लेकर 1785 तक. This was the time period of Warren Hastings in India. ठीक है. 72 to 1785. Clear? Now, what does this policy mean? We have already discussed the states now. Now it's easier to understand. Now I'm giving example, and with the help of examples you can easily understand. Example is what? Treaty of Allahabad. Okay, कब साइन हुआ? 1765. So technically what we see here is that in Treaty of Allahabad, British did what? With Awadh, they maintained friendly relations. With Awadh, they maintained what? Friendly relations. What was the purpose? The purpose was with the help and support of Awadh. ठीक है, अब देखो क्या होगा. When Warren Hastings will come in 1772, what he will do? When Warren Hastings will come in 1772, what he will do? Okay, अब देखो कैसे पॉलिसी को इम्प्लीमेंट करता है. British were very smart. They already have maintained friendly relations with Awadh. What Warren Hastings will say? Warren Hastings will say that we should make Awadh a powerful state, a powerful buffer. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? So when we will make Awadh a powerful state, a powerful buffer, okay, so it will protect the British colonial interests in Bengal. इसका मतलब इस पॉलिसी का एक पॉइंट क्या हो गया? To make the state powerful state with British help and support, with the military help and support of British by providing them European skilled armed forces, by giving European military training. And why you are empowering them? Why you are making them powerful? Powerful क्यों बना रहे हो? Okay, so that they could serve the purpose of a powerful buffer to protect the colonial gains in India. Okay, and this is what? Policy of ring fence. यहाँ पे अगर आपका colonial gain है तो आपने क्या किया? आसपास के states को powerful buffer के रूप में develop किया. That is policy of ring fence introduced by okay Warren Hastings. The concept is very simple. This policy stopped? No, never stopped. कभी ये पॉलिसी खत्म ही नहीं हुई, क्योंकि अभी अभी हमने देखा why British interfered in Punjab, why Treaty of Amritsar was signed, why British interfered in Sindh, why British interfered in Afghanistan. Okay, because they wanted to protect their colonial interests in India. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि this policy was discontinued after Warren Hastings. No, it's not like that. This policy will remain continued. Right? This policy will remain continued. ये पॉलिसी डिसकंटिन्यू होने वाली पॉलिसी है ही नहीं. हम कैसे कह सकते हैं कि दिस पॉलिसी इज डिसकंटिन्यूड? इट इज नॉट ट्रू. ये पॉलिसी डिसकंटिन्यू नहीं होगी. दिस पॉलिसी विल नॉट डिसकंटिन्यू. ओके, नाउ let's discuss this concept with the help of the slide here. Okay, so I have discussed here that the policy of ring fence, technically it comes in which year? किस साल ये आता है policy of ring fence? Look at the sketch, you will find the clear meaning here. Technically this policy comes in 1765. Why? The context of Awadh. बताया था ना 1765 में क्या है? Treaty of Allahabad and the context of Awadh. But basically it was mainly implemented by whom? Warren Hastings. ठीक है, mainly इसको implement किसने किया? Warren Hastings. So if this question comes that who introduced policy of ring fence, तो आपका आंसर क्या होगा? Warren Hastings ही लगाओगे. Right? That will be the answer. और देखो क्या है policy of ring fence, okay, which involved defending their neighbors' frontiers. Defending their neighbors' frontier. जैसे मान लो कि बंगाल है, तो बंगाल के जो नेबरिंग स्टेट्स हैं उनको डिफेंड करना, उनको प्रोटेक्ट करना, उनको पावरफुल बनाना. डिफेंडिंग देयर नेबर्स फ्रंटियर्स इन ऑर्डर टू सेफगार्ड देयर ओन टेरिटरीज. ठीक है, अपने को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए अपने पड़ोसियों को क्या कर दो? पावरफुल बना दो. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? तो आप खुद भी प्रोटेक्ट हो जाओगे. ये है पॉलिसी ऑफ रिंग फेंस. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? जैसे आपने पूरी कॉलोनी के लिए एक गेट लगवा दिया, कॉलोनी पे एक गार्ड बैठा दिया अपने खर्चे से, सारे कॉलोनी में सबके घर में सीसीटीवी कैमरा लगवा दिया. इसका मतलब ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हो? क्योंकि आपके घर में कुछ ना कुछ है जिसको आप प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हो. कॉलोनी वालों पे मेहरबान हो. ठीक है, तो यही पॉलिसी है ये, टू एस्टैब्लिश बफर जोन्स एंड सेफगार्ड द कंपनीज फ्रंटियर्स. इज इट क्लियर? कीवर्ड्स को लिखा करो, डोंट राइट द फुल सेंटेंस. पॉलिसी क्या है? स्ट्रेंथनिंग योर नेबर्स, ओके, टू सेफगार्ड, टू मेक इट एज अ बफर जोन, टू डिफेंड द कंपनीज फ्रंटियर्स, ओके, to establish control and ensure stability with specific regions or territories under their dominion. अच्छा बताओ, this is humble beginning or not? This is humble beginning. आप हेल्प कर रहे हो स्टेट की, उसको पावरफुल बना रहे हो, स्ट्रेंथन कर रहे हो, दिस इज हम्बल बिगिनिंग, बट द अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव इज व्हाट? यू आर ट्राइंग टू, ओके, इंश्योर योर ओन गेन्स, आप खुद के फायदे को इंश्योर करना चाहते हो. नाउ वन मोर पॉइंट हियर, दैट हियर इट हैज बीन रिटन दैट दिस इज द टाइम ड्यूरेशन ऑफ दिस पॉलिसी, बट व्हाट इज द रियलिटी? दिस पॉलिसी कंटिन्यूड, ये कंटिन्यू रहा. वाई इट हैज बीन रिटन हियर 1813? बिकॉज 1813 से एक नई पॉलिसी आएगी और वो बहुत ही पॉपुलर है, तो उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इसको लिख दिया गया. अदरवाइज वी सी दैट दिस पॉलिसी विल नेवर एंड. ओके, फॉर एग्जांपल 1809, ओके, 1809 व्हाट वी सी? ट्रीटी ऑफ अमृतसर 1809 में ही है ना, ट्रीटी ऑफ अमृतसर. रणजीत सिंह, was it a part of policy of ring fence? Yes, Treaty of Amritsar was also a part of policy of ring fence. Now the context is very clear. ये context clear हो गया. Now I am coming to the second topic, and what is the second topic here? So the second topic is policy of subsidiary alliance. So let's discuss the second policy, that is policy of subsidiary alliance. We all know about this, that in India this policy was, if this question is asked that this policy was introduced by, so the answer will be Lord Wellesley. This policy was introduced by Lord Wellesley. Lord Wellesley ने इस policy को introduced by Lord Wellesley, right? And Lord Wellesley became Governor General in this year 1798, and he remained in India till this year 1805. We all know the story of subsidiary alliance policy. This subsidiary alliance policy was the brainchild of Dupleix. This was the brainchild of Dupleix. This was Dupleix's policy, okay, to help and support one against another, to help and support one ruler against the another, one ruler against the another. ये Dupleix की पॉलिसी थी. Subsidiary alliance introduced by Wellesley, it means this policy will come in the year 1798. 1798 में ये पॉलिसी आएगी. And we all know the context of this policy. सबको पता है that British will sign a treaty of friendship. This is what? A treaty of friendship. This is an example of humble beginning or not? They are signing treaty of friendship. This is an example of humble beginnings of EIC in India. They signed what? Treaty of friendship. Treaty of friendship sign किया. और क्या देखा हमने इस treaty of friendship में? That EIC will say that it will make the local state its protectorate state. Local state को क्या करना है? It will make the local state its protectorate state. Okay, it means EIC will protect the local state from its enemies, or you can say that neighbors, from its enemies or neighbors. How it will protect? So it will provide the services of its army, that is EIC army troops. They are well skilled, well trained. So these troops will be kept in the local ruler state. And who will bear the military expenses of these troops? Who will bear the military expenses? The local rulers. ठीक है, तो दूसरे के खर्चे पे अपना काम कैसे चलाना है, ठीक है, इसमें भी एक्सपर्ट थे ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी वाले. ठीक है, आप में से किसी को अगर लीडर वीडर बनना हो तो जेब से पैसा लेके जाना छोड़ दो घर के बाहर. अगर आप पैसा लेके जाओगे तो लीडर कभी नहीं बन पाओगे. ठीक है, खाली जेब निकलो. ठीक है, जहाँ घूमना है घूमो, जिससे मिलना है मिलो, दूसरे लोग आपका खर्चा बियर करेंगे. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? ठीक है, अपना पैसा खर्च करके कहाँ बन पाओगे लीडर, ठीक है। तो दिस इज व्हाट ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी डिड व्हाट, इसके मिलिट्री एक्सपेंसेस लोकल रूलर्स उठाएगा। देन व्हाट ईआईसी विल डू, ईआईसी विल आल्सो कीप अ ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट इन इट्स कोर्ट, रेजिडेंट को ला के रख दे। अभी अभी हमने कहानी पढ़ा था किसका, नेपियर का, राइट, रेजिडेंट। एंड ईआईसी विल से दैट दिस रेजिडेंट विल हेल्प यू, विल सपोर्ट यू, ठीक है, इन व्हाट, resident will help you and support you in maintaining administrative affairs, diplomatic affairs, plus it will also help and support in what, succession disputes, solving the succession disputes, इसमें भी help करेगा, support करेगा। he will also help and support in solving the succession dispute, he will also support in solving the succession dispute, okay. Now the local rulers thought that it's a good deal, okay, good deal, अच्छा deal है, कोई नुकसान नहीं है। But after few years they realized that they have lost their independent status. Signing this treaty was the biggest mistake. After some time they realized that they had lost their independent status. They were indirectly now controlled by the British. British were not controlling them directly. This is what, indirect control and influence on these local states, ठीक है। And there are many such examples where we see that this subsidiary alliance was forcefully signed also. There are many such examples which shows that this subsidiary alliance is forcefully signed also. Subsidiary alliance को क्या किया गया, forcefully भी sign किया गया। मेरी बात समझ गया ना। अच्छा ये बताओ, इनिशियल स्टेज में फोर्सफुली साइन होगा या बाद के स्टेजेस में होगा, बाद के स्टेजेस में होगा, ठीक है। नाउ देयर आर सम इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम दिस पार्ट, ओके, रेड दिस, प्रीलिम्स के लिए ये इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है। यूपीएससी जनरली आस्क, अदर एग्जाम्स आल्सो, दे आस्क व्हाट, chronological order, here they may ask chronological order of those states which signed subsidiary alliance with East India Company, chronological order of those states which signed subsidiary alliance with East India Company. तो chronological order क्या है, this we need to understand, ठीक है ना। Now I am writing some tricks here, उससे आप आसानी से याद कर सकते हो। फर्स्ट इज HMT, HMT, HMT की पहले घड़ी आती थी, वॉच, अब नहीं आती। HMT, H stands for हैदराबाद, राइट दिस, H stands for हैदराबाद। M दूसरे नंबर पे क्या आ जाएगा, M stands for मैसूर, एंड T stands for तंजौर। नाउ इज इट क्लियर, हैदराबाद, मैसूर एंड तंजौर। आई एम राइटिंग द ईयर्स ऑल्सो, बट आप केवल क्या करोगे, ट्रिक याद रख लोगे। हैदराबाद इन द ईयर 1798, राइट दिस, हैदराबाद इन द ईयर 1798, मैसूर इन द ईयर 1799, तंजौर ऑल्सो इन द ईयर 1799। मंथ्स आर डिफरेंट बट वी डोंट नीड टू रिमेंबर द मंथ्स, मंथ्स नहीं याद रखना है, सिंपली रिमेंबर HMT, हैदराबाद, मैसूर एंड तंजौर, याद रहेगा HMT। इसके बाद एक स्पेशल केस है अवध का, वी ऑल नो 1801, अवध तो हमें पहले से ही पता है, वी ऑल नो ना। HMT के बाद क्या आएगा, अवध, subsidiary alliance with Awadh. This case is the point which we all know. There is no any doubt in this. And then Maratha power. अब यहाँ पे क्या लिख लो, Maratha power, Maratha power. And in Maratha power again, okay, let's discuss the context. Maratha power में subsidiary alliance साइन हुआ केवल पेशवा के साथ, पहले केवल पेशवा के साथ, बट जब उनके यूनिट्स ने, कॉन्फेडरेट यूनिट्स ने अपोज किया तो सब्सिडी अलायंस कॉन्फेडरेट यूनिट्स के भी साथ हुआ, इट वाज साइंड विद द कॉन्फेडरेट यूनिट्स एज वेल। सो व्हाट वी सी हियर इज दैट मराठा पावर में, ओके राइट, सबसे पहले सब्सिडी अलायंस किसके साथ साइन होगा, तो दैट इज पेशवा, पेशवा, देन राइट नेक्स्ट सिंधिया, देन भोसले, ठीक है ना। तो दिस इज द क्रोनोलॉजी हियर, पेशवा, सिंधिया, भोसले, ओके, पेशवा, सिंधिया, भोसले, देन होलकर, होलकर, होलकर। गायकवाड़ ने वैसे कभी अपोज किया नहीं था, ठीक है। तो पेशवा के साथ कब साइन हुआ, व्हाट इज द ईयर, वी ऑल नो, 1802, 1802, 1802 में। सिंधिया 1803, भोसले, सिंधिया 1803, भोसले ईयर इज 1804, 1804, ठीक है। अब देखो यहाँ पे, यह ब्रिटिश फॉट वॉर विथ होलकर ऑल्सो, बट विथ होलकर दे विल साइन दिस ट्रीटी इन 1818, ठीक है। होलकर के साथ कब साइन करते हैं ये, 1818 में ट्रीटी साइन करते हैं। गायकवाड़ का कोई स्पेशल रेफरेंस यहाँ पे नहीं है। तो व्हाट इज द क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर हियर, पेशवा, सिंधिया, भोसले, होलकर, पेशवा, सिंधिया, भोसले, होलकर, ठीक है। पेशवा, सिंधिया, यस प्लीज। ठीक है, एग्जैक्टली exactly. तो ये थर्ड वाले में जाके होगा, मेरी बात समझ गया ना, बट यही वाला जो सीक्वेंस है ये पूछा जाता है, ठीक है। तो जैसे अब इसके कुछ ट्रिक्स आप बना लेना अपने तरीके से। जैसे जब हम पढ़ते थे तो मेरा एक दोस्त ट्रिक बनाने में बहुत माहिर था, तो उसने ट्रिक बनाया था, पेशवा ने सिंधिया के घोंसले में होल कर दिया ठीक है, एंड वी नेवर फॉरगेट, पेशवा, सिंधिया, घोंसला मीन्स भोंसला, ठीक है, भोंसले ग्रुप, एंड दिस इज होलकर, ठीक है ना। तो ऐसे आप इस तरह से कुछ यू कैन मेक सम ट्रिक्स, ठीक है ना, ठीक है। पेशवा, एस फॉर सिंधिया, ठीक है, एस फॉर सिंधिया, बी फॉर भोसले, ठीक है, एंड एच फॉर होलकर। दिस वेरी सिंपल कॉन्सेप्ट, इज इट क्लियर। अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है अपना, कि प्रीलिम्स में एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन याद आ जाए, मेरी बात समझ गया ना। ये ऑब्जेक्टिव नहीं है कि कितना बैठ के पढ़ते हो तुम, ठीक है। अगर एग्जाम में काम नहीं आया तो उसका फिर कोई मतलब नहीं है, क्योंकि देखो यहाँ कोई डिग्री नहीं मिलती है यूपीएससी प्रिपरेशन की, मेरी बात समझ गया ना। ऐसा नहीं है कि 2 साल की प्रिपरेशन पे कोई डिग्री है, 5 साल की तैयारी के बाद कोई ज़्यादा बड़ी डिग्री मिल रही है, दिस विल नॉट हैपन। तो इस एग्ज़ाम की सबसे बुरी बात यही है, ठीक है, ओके। याद रहेगा ना आपको, दिस इज द इंटायर क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर, राइट, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दिस ऑर्डर इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, आई होप यू विल रिमेंबर दिस, okay now let's discuss this with the help of some slides, definitions, okay. Now we were discussing subsidy alliance policy now, okay. So I've already discussed with you that this subsidy alliance policy, right, it was introduced by Lord Wellesley, okay, in 1798 to bring princely states under the control of British, okay. In this system, an Indian ruler had to maintain British troops in the state either by giving some of his territories or by paying the maintenance of troops. देखो कितना यहाँ मजेदार बात है, if you don't want to pay, so give British a territory from where they will collect revenue and they will maintain the expenses of their army. जमींदार बनने की कहानी की शुरुआत है, मेरी बात समझ गया ना। Either you pay them salary, or if you are not willing to pay them salary, so give them your territories, they will collect the revenue and they will maintain the military expenses of their army. They had to maintain a British resident at their court, they had to maintain a British resident at their court. Now the allies of Indian states ruler were compelled to accept the permanent garrison of British army, ठीक है। आपके स्टेट में एक परमानेंट ब्रिटिश छावनी बन जाएगी, परमानेंट गैरिसन ऑफ द ब्रिटिश आर्मी विद इन योर टेरिटरी, एंड टू पे सब्सिडी फॉर इट्स मेंटेनेंस, पे द एक्सपेंसेस फॉर इट्स मेंटेनेंस। मतलब क्या किया उन्होंने, आपका दोस्त बन के आपके स्टेट के अंदर अपनी मिलिट्री कैंटोनमेंट एरिया बना ली। अब बताओ आपको डिफीट करना कितना आसान हो गया, इन फ्यूचर दे कैन इजिली डिफीट यू, ओके। द इंडियन रूलर कुड नॉट एम्प्लॉय एनी अदर यूरोपियन इन देयर सर्विसेज without the pre-approval of British. It means that you cannot employ French soldier, you cannot employ French officers, you cannot take help of French without the approval of resident. क्यों ये परमिशन है, क्यों ये प्रोविजन है, याद करो, मैसूर, टीपू सुल्तान एंड हैदर अली, दे गॉट द सर्विसेज ऑफ फ्रेंच। तो क्या कहा ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ने, किसी भी दूसरे यूरोपियन ग्रुप की हेल्प और सपोर्ट आपको नहीं लेनी है। जब हम खुद ही हेल्प करने के लिए खड़े हैं तो आपको किसी और की हेल्प और सपोर्ट क्यों लेनी है? मेरी बात समझ गए ना? दे आर सेइंग दैट वी आर हियर टू हेल्प यू, टू सपोर्ट you, so there is no need to take help and support of others. We are here to help and support you. Now they could not negotiate with any other Indian ruler without consulting the governor general. कैसे? तो देखो, the local ruler will consult resident and resident will consult governor general, और तब आप किसी दूसरे स्टेट के साथ क्या कर सकते हो? ठीक है, negotiate any treaty. It means your foreign policy is completely subjugated under East India Company. ठीक है, आप किसी भी दूसरे स्टेट के साथ कोई पीस ट्रीटी, कोई फ्रेंडशिप ट्रीटी, कोई डिप्लोमेसी नहीं कर सकते विदाउट द अप्रूवल ऑफ रेजिडेंट. रेजिडेंट विल टेक दिस अप्रूवल फ्रॉम गवर्नर जनरल, एंड इन दिस वे यू विल बी एबल टू ओके maintain any kind of diplomatic relation. That's very important point here. Okay, now what is the next point? The policy of subsidy alliance was in reality a document of losing sovereignty. It means by signing this subsidy alliance treaty, the local states were losing what? Their sovereignty. That's why I told you that they lost their independent status. अपना independent status ये खो गए, which meant that the state did not had the right of self defense. आपको protect कौन करेगा? British. They cannot maintain diplomatic relations with any other state. They could not employ any other group of foreign experts in their army, in their administration. ब्रिटिश को छोड़ के किसी भी दूसरे फॉरेनर की आपको सर्विस नहीं लेनी है. And of settling its disputes within its neighbors. It means if you want to settle your disputes with your neighbors, so who will negotiate? Resident will negotiate. Resident will decide कि ये dispute कैसे settle होना है. You will not decide. Nizam of Hyderabad was the first victim. This may be a question. That which state signed subsidiary alliance? Which state was the first state to sign the subsidiary alliance? Highlight कर लेना. Hyderabad state was the first state. क्योंकि ये remarkable point हो गया ना. Hyderabad state was the first state, okay, which signed in 1798. Okay, now second state was Mysore, which signed the treaty in 1799. The third state was Maratha. Okay, Tanzore bhi hai here. There is another state, that is Tanzore in 1799 and Awadh in 1801. Awadh कब है? 1801. Then Peshwa 1802. Which Peshwa signed subsidiary alliance? This can be a question here. Baji Rao II. Highlight this point. That Baji Rao II signed this subsidiary alliance, and then other states like Bhosle, like Sindhia, okay, they also signed subsidiary alliance treaty. Okay, the last Maratha Confederation unit was Holkar, which signed this subsidiary alliance treaty. Last में किसने साइन किया? होलकर ने साइन किया. अब आपको समझ में आया कि कैसे ऑब्जेक्टिव चीजों को भी पढ़ना है. That is also very important. First state, chronological order of the states which signed this treaty. Now look at the statement of Wellesley. You can easily understand the intentions behind this policy. What Wellesley writes himself, he is writing that by the foundation of our auxiliary powers at Hyderabad and Pune. Now Wellesley is saying local states as their auxiliary powers. मेरी बात समझ गया? Who is the supreme power? Now supreme power is East India Company. कह रहा है कि हैदराबाद के साथ, पूना स्टेट के साथ मैंने सब्सिडियरी अलायंस साइन किया. एंड नाउ दे आर व्हाट? ऑक्सिलरी पावर्स. फिर क्या लिख रहा है? अ प्रोफिशिएंट मल्टीट्यूड ऑफ 22,000 men are positioned inside the regions of the outskirts of unfamiliar states and is paid by unfamiliar endowments. कितने सोल्जर्स को उसने वहां पे रिक्रूट कर दिया? नंबर इज 22,000. And who is paying for the expenses of this army? These auxiliary states are paying for the expenses of this army. उसकी इंग्लिश बहुत अच्छी थी, इसीलिए ऐसा लिख दिया उसने. ठीक है, हम लोग उसको सीधा कर ले रहे हैं अपने हिसाब से, राइट? So 22,000 men were positioned, okay, and who was paying for this? UPSC says कि लॉर्ड वेलेस्ली नहीं बनना है आपको, अपने शब्दों में लिखना है. You have to write answer in your own words. 22,000 men are positioned. Now that military is continually kept up with a condition of wonderful hardware and is ready. देखो hardware software word उस time use कर रहा है वो, right? And is ready for dynamic help toward any path at the most limited notice with next to no significant increment to the extremely durable military cost of the government of India. ये तो पक्का चतुर रामालिंगम था, पढ़ के लग रहा है ना, what Lord Wellesley writes, ठीक है? तो हमें ऐसा नहीं लिखना है, we don't have to write. Now we have understood the entire context of this subsidiary alliance policy. Now we are coming to the third policy. Write that third policy. ठीक है? Third policy is what? The third policy is policy of subordinate isolation. अच्छा, ये policy कब तक continue रहेगी? देखो, technically if someone asks you policy of subsidiary alliance, so you will say 1798 to 1813, but it will be continued after this also. It is what? A general timeline. ऐसा नहीं था कि वेलेस्ली ने कहा कि 1798 से 1813 तक ये पॉलिसी रहेगी, नहीं. To make our study comfortable, in order to relate developments, in order to understand the developments, we have made these division. ये division हमने बनाया है, तो कोई ऐसा strict division नहीं है. But if in exam it is asked to match, you will say from 1798 to 1813 तक ये policy. Got it? Okay? But हम क्या दिखता है कि होलकर के साथ, ठीक है, बाद में भी साइन होता है. Now we are coming to the third policy, that is policy of doctrine of lapse, sorry, subordinate isolation. Read this. From 1813, policy of subordinate isolation. Okay. Policy of subordinate isolation from 1813, right, to 1858. Policy of subordinate isolation 1813 to 1858. And what is this policy of subordinate isolation? Let's discuss. This is very easy. Policy of subordinate isolation, very interesting also. Policy of subordinate isolation. Basically, when we say policy of subordinate isolation, so it is an extension of subsidiary alliance policy. ये subsidiary alliance policy का ही क्या है? Extension है. So write this point that this was an extension of subsidiary alliance policy. This was an extension of subsidiary alliance policy. This was an extension. Okay. Now I am just giving an example and you can easily understand how this is an extension. Okay. We all know that Maratha state signed subsidiary alliance treaty. पता है हमें? First who signed? Peshwa signed. Then, okay, Sindhia, then Bhosle, then Holkar. And these are what? Confederate units. These are confederate units of Maratha Empire. He is the Maratha ruler. उस समय पेशवा था. Sangola agreement, but he was the Maratha ruler also. Okay. Now, if all these states have signed subsidiary alliance with British, are they subordinated to East India Company or not? क्या वो subordinate हो चुके हैं? Yes. If they all have signed subsidiary alliance with East India Company, it means they all are subordinated to EIC. ये सब क्या हो चुके हैं? Subordinated to EIC. और क्या किया? They have kept a resident in their court, and this resident will maintain what? Diplomatic affairs. एक resident भी रख दिया, and this resident will maintain what? Diplomatic affairs. उसका डिप्लोमेसी किस बात पे फोकस होगा? इन स्टेट्स के बीच में झगड़ा लगाना कि इनकी दोस्ती बढ़ाना? किस बात पे फोकस होगा? झगड़ा लगाना. समझ में आ गया? यही तो है आइसोलेशन. इट मींस ही विल डिजाइन हिज डिप्लोमेसी इन सच अ मैनर दैट दीज स्टेट्स विल नेवर बिकम फ्रेंड्स ऑफ ईच अदर. ठीक है, एक दूसरे के दोस्त कभी नहीं बनेंगे. थर्ड एंग्लो मराठा वॉर क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि सब दोस्त बन गए. याद है पिंडारी इशू? They thought that we will come together and will fight war. ब्रिटिश ने कहा ना, अब तो subsidiary alliance खत्म करना पड़ेगा. We will fight war with you and Maratha state will be annexed to British Indian Empire. तो policy objective क्या था? What was the policy objective? Read this. Okay, policy objective was, पहला है to make them subordinate under East India Company, and second point, read this, to keep them isolated from each other. To keep them isolated from each other. to keep them isolated from each other. Why they should be kept isolated from each other? So that they could never form an anti-British alliance. This is the purpose. So that, read this, so that they could never form, they could never form an anti-British alliance. एंटी-ब्रिटिश अलायंस. जैसे एक और एग्जांपल देता हूं. इन साउथ इंडिया वन स्टेट वाज हैदराबाद एंड वन स्टेट वाज मैसूर. ठीक है, याद आया? हैदर अली फर्स्ट वॉर में क्या किया था? हैदर अली गॉट द सपोर्ट ऑफ हैदराबाद स्टेट और मराठा. अब सबऑर्डिनेट आइसोलेशन पॉलिसी क्या करेगी? हैदराबाद हैड साइंड सब्सिडियरी अलायंस, मैसूर हैड साइंड सब्सिडियरी अलायंस. Now both of them are subordinated to East India Company. Now the policy is to keep them isolated from each other so that they could never become friends again. दोबारा कभी साथ ना आ पाए. They could never become, okay, you can say that they could never develop a anti-British alliance here. That is the main objective here. Okay, now let's discuss this with the help of slide. Okay, policy of subordinate isolation. This is the time period. Okay, subordinate isolation. Okay, now Hastings, here the name Hastings have been given और ईयर क्या है? 1813. तो कौन सा हेस्टिंग्स होगा? ये वॉरेन हेस्टिंग्स होगा कि लॉर्ड हेस्टिंग्स होगा? एग्जैक्टली. तो यहाँ पे विच नेम इज इंपॉर्टेंट? लॉर्ड हेस्टिंग्स. ठीक है ना, लॉर्ड हेस्टिंग्स इज. ठीक है, क्या है इसमें? नाउ द कॉन्टेक्स्ट आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड विथ यू. मराठा कॉन्टेक्स्ट आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड विथ यू. ठीक है, हियर द स्टेट्स वर मेड टू साइन ट्रीटीज एक्सेप्टिंग सबऑर्डिनेट कोऑपरेशन विथ ब्रिटिश बाय सरेंडरिंग देयर एक्सटर्नल सॉवरेनिटी. यही बात तो मैंने बताई. सबऑर्डिनेट कोऑपरेशन of British, it means you are subordinated to East India Company, plus you will surrender your external sovereignty. External sovereignty means what? Diplomacy, your foreign affairs, this will come in the hands of British. ठीक है, external sovereignty को surrender करने का मतलब ये हुआ कि your diplomatic affairs will come under British. British will decide, and in this way, okay, they will never allow them to make an anti-British alliance. ये बुकिस्ट लैंग्वेज है. आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड इट इन द सिंपल वे. पहले बता चुका हूं. दैट इज द आइडिया दैट यू कैन यूज इन योर आंसर. आसानी से लिख सकते हो. नाउ डिफरेंट नेटिव रूलर्स सरेंडर्ड देयर फॉरेन पॉलिसी. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्टेक्स्ट? हु इज लुकिंग आफ्टर देयर फॉरेन पॉलिसी? रेजिडेंट. So is it an extension of subsidiary alliance policy? The answer is yes. ये subsidiary alliance policy का extension है. Completely in the hand of British. They were left free in the internal affairs. They were free in the internal affairs. External sovereignty इनके पास नहीं है. But practice they were treated as subordinates. ठीक है? In theory, they are free to maintain their internal affairs, but in practice they are treated as subordinates. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? In practice they were treated as subordinates. The interference of the British through the resident at their court went on increasing. Resident का interference क्या होता चला गया? बढ़ता चला गया. The best example is 1842 Charles Napier. I have already discussed with you. Charles Napier. Charles Napier becomes resident. He replaced Outram. He become resident in Sindh. ठीक है? ठीक है, he become resident. Charles Napier becomes resident here in Sindh, right? And what Charles Napier did? Bullying. I have already discussed with you. यही तो टाइम पीरियड है इसका, 1813 to 1858. और चार्ल्स नेपियर ईयर इज व्हाट? 1842-43. चार्ल्स नेपियर ने क्या किया? He started bullying. He started making false allegations on the state. False allegations भी लगाया. So this happened. Okay. The interference, nature of interference depended on the personality of the ruler and the British resident at his court. अगर रेजिडेंट बदमाश है तो वो ज़्यादा इंटरफेयर करेगा। जैसे चार्ल्स नेपियर बहुत बदमाश था, वो क्या कह रहा है, वी डोंट हैव एनी राइट टू एनेक्स सिंध बट वी शैल डू दिस। भाई ये एथिकल नहीं है मुझे पता है, लेकिन मैं एनेक्स करूंगा, ठीक है। तो अगर रेजिडेंट बदमाश है तो वो ज्यादा इंटरफेयर करेगा। इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द पर्सनालिटी ऑफ द रेजिडेंट एंड पर्सनालिटी ऑफ द रूलर ऑल्सो। अगर मान लो कि रूलर अगर ज्यादा थोड़ा पावरफुल और समझदार हुआ तो वो रेजिडेंट को कंट्रोल करके रखेगा, और अगर रूलर वीक हो गया तो कौन पावरफुल हो जाएगा, रेजिडेंट पावरफुल हो जाएगा। सो दिस विल डिपेंड ऑन द पर्सनालिटी ऑफ द रेजिडेंट एंड द पर्सनालिटी ऑफ द रूलर। But it was quite clear that the British did not treat native ruler as independent entities. This is point is very important. That EIC was signing treaty, but EIC was not treating the local rulers as the independent entities. ठीक है, उनकी इंडिपेंडेंस में हमेशा क्या करते थे, इंटरफेयर करते थे, राइट। ग्रेजुअली दे वेर रिड्यूस टू द पोजिशन ऑफ subordinates. It means now the local rulers were reduced to the position of subordinates of East India Company, and they were also treated as such. So will they get humiliated? Yes, the local rulers will get humiliated. So what will happen? Those rulers who will feel that their respect is being compromised and they are getting humiliated, what will they do? Will they support revolt of 1857? Yes or no? Yes. So the dissatisfaction that is arising due to subsidiary alliance, the dissatisfaction that is arising due to this subordinate isolation will do what? Will encourage the local rulers to join the revolt of 1857. So those who are dissatisfied will join the revolt of 1857, and those who are happy with the East India Company, those who are getting benefits by the presence of East India Company in India, what will they do? They will protect Britishers during the revolt of 1857, and in this way they will become the breakwaters in the storm. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? This will happen. Do you get the entire context? समझ में आया? दोबारा रिवीजन करने की जरूरत है नहीं, ये कॉन्फिडेंस रहना चाहिए, बिकॉज वी आर गिविंग मोर टाइम इन द क्लास, सो दैट इज द ऑब्जेक्टिव, यही ऑब्जेक्टिव है। अदरवाइज आई वुड हैव फिनिश्ड इट इन 25 to 30 लेक्चर। क्लास में पढ़ने के बाद दोबारा सेल्फ स्टडी की जरूरत नहीं है, ठीक है ना। नाउ द नेक्स्ट पॉलिसी, व्हाट वाज द नेक्स्ट पॉलिसी? आई एम कमिंग टू द नेक्स्ट पॉलिसी। नाउ व्हाट्स द नेक्स्ट पॉलिसी हियर? So after subordinate isolation, what is the next policy? Next policy is policy of doctrine of lapse. Clear? That was the next policy. So let's discuss this. Policy of doctrine of lapse. Policy of doctrine of lapse. Lord Wellesley comes to India. Read this. Lord Wellesley, sorry, Lord Dalhousie. Lord Dalhousie comes to India. 1856. He was the Governor General of India. From 1848 to 1856, he was the Governor General of India, Lord Dalhousie. And now, how many years have passed? EIC's rule, okay, now 1757 to 1848. Almost 90 years of EIC rule have completed. Almost 1 century. It's not exactly 1 century, but we can say that almost 1 century. 90 years of rule has been completed. And during this period, EIC has already established indirect control and influence. EIC had already established indirect control and influence on many states. बहुत सारे states पे it has already established indirect control and influence. We all know this. जिनके साथ भी subsidy alliance sign करोगे, you will establish indirect control and influence. You have Bengal, you have Madras, you have Bombay, you have Maratha state, Mysore state, okay, Hyderabad state, Tanjore state. So they have already indirectly influenced. Now when and indirect influence, why? Because humble beginning. वो नहीं चाहते थे कि उनके कॉलोनियल इंटेंशन सबके सामने चले आए, okay. Basically they were trying to hide their colonial intentions. That's why they did this. Now when Lord Dalhousie comes, he said that, okay, we should now do what? To establish, right, this direct control and influence on states, and we should make these territories part of British Indian Empire, part of British Indian Empire. गाइस ने ये इनडायरेक्ट कंट्रोल और इन्फ्लुएंस क्या होता है? नाउ द टाइम हैज कम व्हेन वी शुड एस्टैब्लिश व्हाट? डायरेक्ट कंट्रोल एंड इन्फ्लुएंस. Okay, so when you will try to establish direct control and influence, this is what? Moderate or humble policy or aggressive policy? Obviously this is an aggressive policy. तो देखो ब्रिटिश कितने स्मार्ट है. 90 years, almost 1 century have passed. Now they are thinking that अब समय आ गया है कि हमें एक ऐसी पॉलिसी लानी चाहिए, aggressive policy. Okay, and Dalhousie wants to complete this task as soon as possible. He wanted to complete this task as soon as possible. As soon as possible. तो इसके लिए क्या करना पड़ेगा? चीटिंग करनी पड़ेगी ना. Okay, so Dalhousie will not care for ethical or non-ethical means. Okay, valid or non-valid means. It means he will not care for valid means or non-valid means. Okay, it means he is also ready to choose this non-valid means. ठीक है. और उसको चार्ल्स नेपियर वाली स्टोरी पता ही है. चार्ल्स नेपियर पॉपुलर था. चार्ल्स नेपियर को अवार्ड वगैरह मिले. क्या किया उसने? सिंध को एनेक्स करवा दिया. ठीक है, अवार्ड वगैरह हर जगह बुला के उसको प्राइज वगैरह मिल रहे थे, अवार्ड सेरेमनी में बुलाया जा रहा था. डलहौजी ने कहा अच्छा बेटा ठीक है, तुमसे बड़ा अवार्ड मैं लूंगा. ओके, तो आउटलुक उसका क्या है? चार्ल्स नेपियर वाला ही है, दैट एनी हाउ वी विल हैव टू एनेक्स. तो इसके लिए तरीका क्या निकालेगा? व्हाट इज द मेथड हियर? राइट दिस. मेथड क्या है? मेथड क्या है? राइट दिस पॉइंट, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. मेथड इज राइट, if any ruler has no natural, no hair, no hair, no hair, okay, not its own hair, अगर इसकी खुद की संतान नहीं है, it does not have its own natural hair, okay, so what will happen? If he is adopting, okay, son on or daughter, okay, so this adopted son or daughter will not be accepted as a valid heir. Okay, adopted son, adopted child of the rulers will not be considered as the valid heir. Adopted child will not be considered as the valid heir, and in that case this state will lapse. The rights of this state to rule will be lapsed. To rule will be lapsed. ठीक है, in that case the right of the state to rule will be lapsed. इस स्टेट के रूल करने का जो राइट है वो क्या हो जाएगा? लैप्स कर जाएगा. द राइट ऑफ द स्टेट टू रूल विल बी लैप्स्ड. ठीक है, इसका मतलब योर एडॉप्टेड सन कैन गेट योर पर्सनल प्रॉपर्टी, नॉट स्टेट प्रॉपर्टी. अब डिवाइड कर दिया. ये डिसाइड करने वाले आप कौन होते हैं? क्या किया ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ने? डिसाइडेड पर्सनल प्रॉपर्टी का आपके पास जो ज्वेलरी वगैरह है ये सब दे दो, अपनी साइकिल मोटरसाइकिल कार ये दे दो, बट स्टेट प्रॉपर्टी नहीं मिलेगी. ओके, नाउ नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, राइट दिस. द एडॉप्टेड child of the rulers will also not be given title and pensions. Adopted child राजा का टाइटल नहीं यूज कर सकता. Will not be given title and pensions. Will not be given title and pensions. Got it? Title and pensions भी नहीं मिलेंगे. Okay, right, next point. Dalhousie also announced that Dalhousie also announced that the titles and pensions of the rulers will soon be ended. पेशवा को कहाँ लेके आए थे? कानपुर. उसको पेंशन दे रहे थे. मुगल एम्परर भी पेंशन पे जिंदा था इस सब. मुगल एम्परर वाज आल्सो गेटिंग पेंशन फ्रॉम ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी, क्योंकि आपको आदत लग गई थी सैलरी लेने की 1765 से. तो अब क्या लोगे? पेंशन लोगे. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? So they announced that we will also end what this pension system, this title and everything. Okay. Now tell me, is this a forceful method? Is it clear that the Dalhousie is willing to annex these states anyhow? These are not valid means. Okay. Now, by applying this policy, right, many states were annexed to British Empire. Many states were forcefully annexed to British Empire. Many states were forcefully annexed to British Empire. Forcefully annexed to British Empire. And now here the prelims question are asked. Prelims question, the states to arrange them in chronological order. States to arrange them in chronological order. States to arrange them in chronological order. और वो states कौन से हैं? Write this. सतारा. ऐसे पेयर्स में लिख लो, you can easily remember. सतारा, जैतपुर, संबलपुर. सतारा, जैतपुर, संबलपुर. This is pair 1. सतारा, जैतपुर, संबलपुर. पेयर 2 में लिख लो बगाट, उदयपुर, झांसी. In pair 2, write this. बगाट, उदयपुर, झांसी. बगाट, उदयपुर, झांसी. Okay. And then you can write Nagpur. बगाट, उदयपुर, झांसी and नागपुर. ठीक है ना? सतारा ईयर है 1848. दिस इज 1849. दिस इज 1849. केवल नेम याद करना क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर में. गॉट इट? सतारा, जैतपुर, संबलपुर. ईयर भी देख सकते हो, वैसे कोई मुश्किल नहीं है. बगाट, रेड दिस 1850. उदयपुर 1852. झांसी 1854. और लगे हाथ इन्होंने क्या किया? अवध. अवध को भी टारगेट बनाया. अवध पे चार्जेस क्या है? मिस गवर्नेंस. प्रिटेक्स्ट ऑफ मिस गवर्नेंस. अवध वॉज annexed to British Empire in which year? 1856. And who was the Governor General here? Dalhousie was the Governor General. यहाँ पे Dalhousie है Governor General. Now Awadh is annexed to British Empire. This is the year 1856. Now is this clear? This is the chronological order. Satara, Jaipur, Sambalpur, Bagat, Udaipur, Jhansi, and Awadh was annexed on the pretext of misgovernance. Got it? Yes. लिखा तो है. बघाट, उदयपुर, झांसी. यस. 1854. नागपुर. ओके. 1854. ठीक है. एक दो बार देखोगे तो कुछ ना कुछ रिकॉल हो जाएगा. जैसे क्या करना चाहिए? कुछ स्पेशल याद करो. लाइक झांसी इज इंपॉर्टेंट. नागपुर आपने याद कर लिया. सतारा पहला था. तो अगर इफ यू रिमेंबर 2 और 3, तो इन क्वेश्चन यू कैन एलिमिनेट एंड विल रीच एट द राइट आंसर. सारा नहीं याद करना चाहिए, क्योंकि सारा याद करोगे तो पक्का भूल जाओगे. तो पहला कौन सा है, इंपॉर्टेंट कौन सा है, ऐसे कनेक्ट करो चीजों को और आसानी से याद होएगा. ठीक है ना? नाउ लेट्स लुक एट द स्लाइड. ओके, दिस टॉपिक. लेट्स लुक एट द स्लाइड. डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ लैप्स. नाउ this part we have already discussed. Now the second is doctrine of lapse. We all know that the doctrine of lapse was a policy of annexation initiated by East India Company. Okay, to annex which states? Princely states. I have already discussed it. It was followed by Lord Dalhousie when he was the India's Governor General. The time period is 1848 to 1856. This policy was used to enlarge the British Empire border. What is the meaning of this? Enlarging the British Empire border, it means bringing more states or territories under the control of British Empire. Okay. Now, what are the key elements here? One key element is succession issue. I have already discussed that if the ruler dies without a natural male heir, यहाँ पे क्या है? खुद का होना चाहिए. Plus, if the ruler is died without the natural male heir, okay, the British East India Company will annex the state. It means the right of the ruler to adopt a child and to make him the next ruler, to announce him as his successor, this right is denied. The ruler cannot take an adopted son as the next ruler. He cannot announce him the next ruler. It was a common practice among the Indian rulers. It means when there was no natural son, the Indian rulers were adopting son. okay, and they were announcing him as the successor, but British government did what? This ended, okay, this system. So this was the second is incompetence clause. ठीक है, यही clause किस पे लगा है? I have already discussed with you. Incompetence clause, it means that the policy annexation of states will be done when the ruler will be fit incompetent or is not competent to govern. मतलब ये फिर बता रहा है कि इंडिया में हम क्यों आए हैं? वी आर द लिबरेटर्स, गुड गवर्नेंस देने के लिए आए हैं. अगर आपका रूलर इज नॉट कॉम्पिटेंट, इज नॉट फिट टू गवर्न, तो हम क्या करेंगे? दैट स्टेट विल पार्ट ऑफ द ब्रिटिश इंडियन एम्पायर एंड वी विल गिव यू गुड गवर्नेंस. वो गुड गवर्नेंस हम देंगे आपको. ये तो जबरदस्ती हो गई, ठीक, राइट? नाउ द थर्ड इज एनेक्सेशन एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. वंस द स्टेट इज एनेक्स्ड, the territory would come under direct British administration. It means who will administer that territory? British. And the princely state's autonomy will be revoked. It means now the princely state and its ruler, his autonomy will be revoked. British will look after the administration. If they want, they can dissolve your army also. For example, when they annexed Awadh in 1856, what the British did? They dissolved the army of Awadh. पूरा का पूरा ब्यूरोक्रेटिक स्ट्रक्चर जो था उसको डिसॉल्व कर दिया. सो दिस दे कैन डू, ओके. तो द स्टेट्स ईयर्स आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड, ठीक है. झांसी क्या लिखवाया था मैंने आपको? 1850, 1853 कर लीजिए. क्या बताया था? 53 या 54? इट इज 1853, ठीक है, 1853. तो सतारा, जैतपुर, संभलपुर, बघाट, उदयपुर, झांसी, नागपुर, ओके, दीज आर द स्टेट्स हियर, ठीक है ना, राइट? These are the states here which were annexed. The chronological order I have already discussed with you, and this fact is very important. Context of Awadh. It was annexed on the pretext of misgovernance and the year was 1856. This context is very much important. Okay. Now in next class I will discuss with you what was the policy of equal federation. ये भी आपके साथ में डिस्कस करूंगा, right? How policy changed after 1858. तो अगर आपने प्रिंसली स्टेट्स वाला वीडियो देखा होगा तो थोड़ा सा यहाँ भी मतलब यू विल गेट सम, ओके, कंटेंट हियर आल्सो. गेटिंग ऑल द पॉइंट्स, ठीक है. अब जब चैप्टर ये फिनिश हो रहा है, इंडिया इन 18th सेंचुरी, तो व्हाट यू विल हैव टू डू, यू विल प्रैक्टिस ऑल द एमसीक्यूज फ्रॉम दिस चैप्टर, ठीक है, एंड यू विल प्रैक्टिस इट एटलीस्ट 5 or 6 टाइम्स, ठीक है ना. प्रैक्टिस एमसीक्यूज मिनिमम 5 to 6 टाइम्स, ठीक है. First step is what? You will read questions only. First step is what? You will read questions only, not answer, not explanation. Questions only. Questions and options. Questions and options. When you will read questions 2 or 3 times, so you will get an idea that from which part the questions are being asked. What is the core area? You will get that idea and you will start remembering the questions. Question आपको याद होने लगेगा. So while reading NCERT books, if you remember the questions, you can easily relate a theme. ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चन, ये पूरा का पूरा पैराग्राफ इंपॉर्टेंट है बिकॉज यूपीएससी ने यहाँ से पहले क्वेश्चंस पूछे हुए हैं. मेरी बात समझ गया ना, व्हाट आई मीन टू से? तो रीड क्वेश्चंस फर्स्ट. जीएस मेंस क्वेश्चंस को भी रीड इट डेली. क्वेश्चन पढ़ते रहो. क्वेश्चन पढ़ते पढ़ते आपको वो पूरा का पूरा थीम याद हो जाएगा और जब आपको थीम याद हो जाएगा देन सेल्फ स्टडी विल बिकम मोर इजियर फॉर यू. हमें क्या होता है, वी रीड क्वेश्चन, वी स्टार्ट रीडिंग एक्सप्लेनेशन एंड आंसर. फर्स्ट स्टेप शुड बी द रीड क्वेश्चन, ट्राई टू गेट एन आइडिया फ्रॉम दैट क्वेश्चन, ठीक है. एंड द सेम मेथड शुड बी अप्लाइड ऑन अदर एरियाज ऑफ जीएस ऑल्सो, ठीक है. टॉपिक समझ में आया? एक काम और मैं करूंगा अभी, व्हेन आई विल फिनिश वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री, ओके, सो एट दैट टाइम आई विल स्टार्ट. टिल नाउ आई हैव टॉट व्हाट? अभी तक क्या पढ़ा है मैंने? अभी तक मैंने पढ़ा है एंशिएंट मिडिवल कल्चर, राइट? एंशिएंट मिडिवल कल्चर आई हैव डिस्कस्ड विथ यू. जिन लोगों ने पढ़ा है वो एंशिएंट मिडिवल कल्चर पढ़े होंगे, ठीक है. तो सिंस आई एम टीचिंग दोज स्टूडेंट्स वी आर ऑलरेडी फैमिलियर विथ मी, ओके, एंड taken classes, so here I will discuss art and culture only after world history. It means exactly on the lines of what UPSC has written in its syllabus. अगर UPSC ने mention किया है literature, so I will start discussing literature फ्रॉम एंशिएंट टाइम टू द मिडिवल टाइम्स। मेरी बात समझ गया ना? मॉडर्न टाइम्स। इफ यूपीएससी हैज मेंशनड कल्चरल आर्ट, सो आई विल स्टार्ट इट फ्रॉम आईवीसी। यहां से डिस्कस करते करते कहाँ आ जाएंगे हम? मिडिवल टाइम्स तक आ जाएंगे। गॉट इट? And this session will be beneficial for only those students who have already studied ancient and medieval history. देखो, आपको रैंडम टॉपिक्स को समझने के लिए एक बेस चाहिए होता है, ठीक है? आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ यू हैव. So this will be the most relevant discussion that I will take after this world history class. So this will be in continuance. So this is what September month, October, November, our all discussions will be over. Then I will do what? I will discuss all the PYQs with you, and you already have studied PYQs. दो चार बार पढ़ लोगे, so what will happen? Okay, when I will discuss PYQs, so your entire effort will be consolidated. इससे क्या होगा? Your confidence will be boosted. आपको लगेगा हाँ हिस्ट्री मेरा तैयार है, और कॉन्फिडेंस का भी बहुत ज़्यादा रोल होता है आपके एग्जाम में. यू कीप फियरिंग, डरते रहोगे कि ये मॉड्यूल तैयार नहीं है, तो उसमें 2 क्वेश्चन और गलत करके आ जाओगे. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? So when you will feel confident, so you will be able to make smart guess. So that will be helpful. और ये सारा का सारा काम हमें कब तक फिनिश कर लेना है? Till December we will be able to finish everything. दिसंबर के बाद what I have thought is that in the month of March I will take QIP history class. So you don't have to prepare current affair part. I will discuss here. ठीक है? It will take few classes. Few classes means मेरे लिए ये कम से कम 10 क्लास होगी, तो इट विल बी 20 आवर्स. So we'll discuss all, okay, important informations, but here we will take help of slides because it will minimize the time that is required for the discussions. And in the meantime, from December to Feb, I will take one more module. ठीक है? कोई भी module that is a part of prelims also, and that will be on your demand. If you will say polity, if you will say economics, if you will say geography, I can take one more module and you will get 100% command on that module. ठीक है? ये चॉइस आपकी होगी, तो दिसंबर तक डिसाइड करके बता देना कि किस मॉड्यूल में आपको सबसे ज़्यादा डर लग रहा है. उस मॉड्यूल का टीचर बना दूंगा आपको मैं, ठीक है ना? अपार्ट फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री. So this you will tell me. If you will say polity, I will teach it. And when I will teach polity, I will cover all this book जो आप पढ़ते हो लक्ष्मीकांत NCERT, plus I will cover all the PYQs. If you will say economics, I will do the same. So what is the relative importance? You will decide and will tell me according to your preparation level कि किस में ज़्यादा challenges है, and I will do it. ठीक है ना? Got it? Okay? तो दिसंबर तक आप डिसाइड करके बता देना, ठीक है? और एक और मॉड्यूल हम यहाँ कर सकते हैं, ये स्कोप है. गॉट इट? चलिए, कोई डाउट, कोई क्वेश्चन? चलिए, थैंक्स टू ऑल ऑफ यू.